he's telling me, well, the other family does it this way. Well, my friends are allowed to do this. How come I'm not allowed to do this? If I just say, well, this is how we do it, that really doesn't have a lot of power. If I can help him see a vision for living God's way, that will transcend any of these things that I'm doing. But I can think of times when I've said, I don't care how your friends do it. This is how God wants us to do it. And I'm tempted to say, this is how we do it. Okay, this is going to be a firestorm in the comments, I'm guessing, because what we're delving into today is something we've avoided for a long time. Please talk about parenting. Okay, is parenting important?
Absolutely.
Is everyone going to have an opinion?
Absolutely.
Who is right, us or the people commenting?
Absolutely.
You are who you are. So much of it is because of your parenting, like the parents you had or did not have, correct?
Yeah.
So parenting uncomplicated. Let's hit it.
Let's hit it.
Pre-qualifier, we are not experts. We have a 14-year-old. He's not in prison, so he's doing pretty good. Yet he could have peaked. We don't know. We don't know how far. We don't know.
My goodness.
This could be the best he gets. 10-year-old's doing good too. 9-year-old's doing good. And we mostly talk about the Bible because that was we're an expert at, but we're going to talk about 3 principles that we've put into place that have helped keep things uncomplicated and helped keep our kids out of jail.
Okay, number one, this might feel weird and be totally not what you were expecting, because I think the thing that we're going to talk about is a very natural thing to do as a family. So we do not have a family code.
People aren't going to like that.
I don't know if people are like that. And I'm not
they
saying
think the code is the code.
Have a code that's wrong. So please hear that as well. For us, we have never had a family code, meaning the Colemans do this, or the Colemans don't do this, or the Colemans' values are this, this, and this. I have plenty of friends that have done that. And so there's no disrespect to anyone. If you do this, no disrespect to you.
I remember starting to make one. So
yeah, we
had like a family crest, and we were all going to get tattoos of this family crest.
True.
That's probably never going to happen. Side note, one time we were in the hospital, the doctor's office, and we were waiting to, and I was they're all getting shots. All 3 kids are getting shots. And so that's an awful waiting room to be in. All 3 of my kids are wearing gowns.
Yep.
The doctor's going to come in with needles and stick all of them. They're all nervous. And I start going, if we all had to get tattoos today, what would we get? And each one of my kids had already thought of this question.
No, only one of them had. The oldest one was like, I'd never get a tattoo. And you're like, you have to do it to save my life. Go.
That's
5,
the scenario.
4,
if you
3,
don't get a tattoo,
and he was like,
I die.
Cross, right? The first one.
So
they're
that's
much
the
younger.
Firstborn. The firstborn wants to get a cross.
About Jesus.
The little one.
The little one goes, she's a girl.
Was it
she's
a dolphin?
like, I think I get a dolphin. Like, she's probably 3 years old at this time.
Yeah.
They're tiny. And then our middle son goes, I'd get Carter rocks on my knuckles. Like, he had already had this. He'd already like worked this out in his little mind.
Yeah.
Because no one else knew.
It actually works out. If you did Old English and you spelled it out, it would fit.
It works.
Across
So
the knuckles.
this was premeditated. Anyway, go back to.
So, anyways, we speaking about tattoos and crests or whatever. We had been like, if we had to have a family crest that we had in our house, and this is very popular technique.
Yeah.
For parenting.
Sure.
Okay. So I realize this is going to probably maybe offend somebody who has this in their house. You have a crest and you're like, this is our Johnson family rules, or this is our whatever family rules. And the idea is you kind of put together 4 or 5 values and you put icons with them. And those are the things that kind of hold your family together. So you have almost like this objective kind of code. And it's like, well, the Colemans don't do that, or the Colemans always do this, And I remember struggling with that because I feel like God has already given us a family code, and that is what's outlined in the Bible of how to live a life like Jesus.
Yeah.
And my concern was in full transparency here. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be doing the best job as a parent, even though I'm trying my best. And maybe you feel that way.
Yeah, totally.
And so I don't know if I really want to nail down all these things and say, this is how the Colemans do it. Because the truth is, likely they're going to get older. They're going to have their own family, or they're going to be independent. And they're going to be like, well, maybe the Coleman family doesn't do that, but I do, And then it really only lives with that. It only lasts that time in history that you have where everybody does what you say as a family. But if you had something that transcended that, like the Bible, and maybe if even they didn't see just me as the father of the code, but they saw God as a father over a bigger family code, because they do have a spiritual family across the world, and they do have a father who's already said what it looks like to be in his family. And so we kind of just ditched that pretty quick and said, rather than saying this is what the Coleman family does, or this is how Colemans do it, as galvanizing as that is for so many families, it seems like it would be better to teach them just God's way and say this is what God's family does.
Right.
And so that's not to be overly critical of your family code. It's just, even if you take your family code that you have right now and connect it to God's way, because I'm sure that's where it comes from.
Right.
You know, it will be more helpful in the future in case you're like me and you're worried about kind of missing it a little bit.
Sure. Or, I mean, you talked about maybe once they're out of, they have their own family doing something different. But I mean, come on. Their teenage years might be like, I don't want to be part of this family anymore. I don't want to live by this code. And so I think the heart at the end of the day, the uncomplicated way to even frame it is to say, like, this family honors God. Yeah. And the Bible is our authority in this home, and that's what we're going to live by. Yeah. So, like, do your actions honor God? So it becomes way less complicated. Like, oh, is that honor? Is that this? Is that that? Like, it is just honoring God with our life and using the Bible as our authority. It's actually
less complicated than you think. Right? I mean, really, if you could just simply help them understand how the Bible is practical, how God's way is practical, it's not complicated. It actually might be more complicated to try to nail everything down to 4 or 5 things,
right?
And like look at it and have it on your wall and say, you're violating the code, you know, or Colemans don't do that, you know. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus did a really good job. Jesus is the king at keeping things uncomplicated. Yeah. In Luke chapter 10, they ask him, what's the greatest commandment? And they're asking, what's the greatest commandment out of 600 commandments, 600 and something commandments? And Jesus says, love the Lord with all your heart, mind, strength, soul. Love your neighbor as yourself. And what he's doing is he's summarizing God's heart, right? If you take the 10 commandments and you cut it in half, the first half, basically, it's 4 and 6, but the first half is about how you love God, and then the second half is about how you love each other.
Right.
And so really what Jesus is saying is he's saying, love God and love one another. Love God, love people. He's making it uncomplicated. He's keeping it from getting too complicated. And I think it can be the same way when you tell your kids that, like, does this honor God or not? Yeah. Are you showing love to one another or not? And I mean, I love it. Jesus calls the golden rule. Treat each other the way you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. So anyways, I know it sounds simple to have the family code, but for us, I don't know.
Something we tried and it's been working. Yeah.
We ditched it. We ditched it. So
yeah, I think too, it teaches the kids to look to God and not look to man. Yeah. Like it really puts the focus on, like, we're going to get it wrong. Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, anytime man puts their hands on something, they can mess it up. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's really teaching them to always go to the Word of God and to honor God, which I think takes people out of it. Because, I mean, so many people are naturally people pleasers. It's like, oh, I'm doing this to make mom and dad happy. Yeah. You know? Yeah.
And that only lasts so far. And that's not a bad place to start. Honor your mother and father, big deal in the Bible. When they get older, so my 14, close to be 15-year-old now, he's telling me, well, the other family does it this way. Well, my friends are allowed to do this. How come I'm not allowed to do this? And if I just say, well, this is how we do it. Right. That really doesn't have a lot of power. If I can help him see,
not with your teenagers.
if I can help him see a vision for living God's way,
yeah, come on,
that will transcend any of these things that I'm doing. And so I'm like, no, I don't want to. I guess one of the other reasons why we don't talk about this a lot is because I don't want to share too many personal stories. Sure. And then later he'd be like, why'd you say that on the podcast? I totally get it. But I can think of times when I've said, I don't care how your friends do it. This is how God wants us to do it. Yeah. And I'm tempted to say this is how we do it. Yeah. And it's not that that's wrong. It's just a little bit better to say.
A little bit. It's a whole lot better
to give them a vision for God's way.
Well, and when you talk about vision, it's interesting. I feel like a super strict mom, right? Yeah. Like I feel like we're very strict with our kids, what they do, where they go, blah, blah, blah. And our kids have told me time and time again, you guys aren't strict. Yeah. And I was almost offended because I kind of pride myself on, like, I'm a strict mom, they've got rules and they're like, you're not strict. And I think what I'm learning is we actually are, but because you do such a great job and I try to do a good job with giving them vision for why we do what we do, it really has made it feel like less rules and more freedom, even though we're strict parents. Our kids don't, I'll just throw out one thing. We don't do overnighters. I think that's pretty strict. When all their friends are doing overnighters and going places,
they're not allowed to spend the night in God's house. Yeah.
Okay. They don't feel restricted. And I think vision, parents, if you can lead your family with vision of God's way, and it will change everything. They will see rules and not feel restrained by them.
Yeah.
So anyway, just kind of having
we're giving it our best. We might be looking back on this podcast in 5 years and being like, look,
take it off YouTube.
These guys do that. So I think the first thing is, it might be helpful for you, is don't try to pin yourself down to a family code. Just give them the vision for God's family and live by God's family code, right?
That's good. Do you want to start reading or listening to the Bible, but you have no idea where to start?
I get the question all the time. I don't know the translation. I don't know where to even begin. That's why we made the 21 Days of Momentum Challenge. How many chapters are in the book of John?
21.
1 chapter a day, small podcast episode. You go through all 21 days. You take the challenge. What happens?
I think your life will be different. You will have hope for your day. You will have a security in hearing the voice of God.
So take the 21-day challenge today on the UNcomplicated app. Just look at the link in description or search your app store. Second helpful thing, keeping parenting uncomplicated.
The second thing started even before my second kid was born.
How many kids do you have again?
We have 3. And obviously, you just have to be intentional as a parent. And so one kid's a reality, but as soon as there's siblings involved, I started thinking about the dynamic, not just that it was going to impact me, but it was going to impact our oldest.
And it came on real fast. I didn't even know. I still sometimes don't even know how old my kids are. They're like, how old are your kids? I'm like, it's easy for you to judge. Your kids are like evenly spaced apart. Sometimes my kids are the same age and they're not twins.
Yeah.
One Mother's Day, you had 1 kid. Mm-hmm. The next Mother's Day, you had 3 kids.
This is a true story.
It's kind of...
Yeah. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
But even before our first had a sibling, I was pregnant with our second, and I would begin to paint a picture of what Carter was going to be to Logan and Logan's purpose in his life, Carter's purpose. I began to say, like, you're going to love this baby. This baby's going to be your best friend. And I would actually paint scenarios too that were reality, because the reality is when you go from 1 kid to 2, the first kid feels left out.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? And so I would say, like, hey, let's say the baby brother's here.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to feed him. I'm the only one that can feed him. So when you might have to be with daddy, but that's okay. That doesn't mean mom doesn't love you. So just like real practical, like realities too, helping him figure out this new reality for his life. But my goal was to give him a vision about what a gift his brother and then what a gift his sister would be in the grand scheme of his life, and how God had intention with choosing Logan to be Carter's brother and Kendall's brother and all of it. And so
people don't like that. People are like, no, everybody should be unique. And I'm like, listen, there's roles in the family that impact the whole family. Mm. Everybody's got to play their place on the team, and we don't shy away from it. And you straight up brainwashed them. Like, if you want to call like point number 2, brainwash your kids, I'm okay with using that language because I watched you do it.
Yeah.
You're like, you're going to be a great big brother.
Like, you're going to love them and like, you're going to forgive them.
Yes. And you would say things like, well, what if I can't get the bottle? Or that they would go get the bottle. Like those kids came out owning their new role, right? Which has really helped.
Yeah.
Because I remember a moment where the oldest, or one of the older ones, I'll say that, kind of messed up. They were talking on FaceTime or something, and one of his younger siblings got made fun of by somebody else on the call, and he let it happen.
Yeah.
And then later, the younger one is really hurt
that
the older brother didn't stand up for him, and his friends made fun of him. Obviously, now the older brother's usually really good at this. So I call him in my office, which sounds dramatic, but
you just happen to be in
the
that
place
office
where nobody else is gonna hear. And I'm like, and I just gave him vision. I was like, listen. There might be a time where your little sister, I was on campus with you at school, and people are going to say things about your little sister. And are you going to join in with that? Or are you going to step in and say, don't talk about my sister that way? And I just saw his shoulders go back.
Yeah.
And I saw him get this vision, this identity. Oh, no, my job is to protect my little sister.
Yeah.
Right? And he left that meeting that I had in my office with a ownership in that role of the family.
Yeah.
That like, hey, we protect each other. And this is God's role in the family. She only has one big brother, and your little brother only has one big brother. And so you got to run interference. And if your friends are making fun of him, you got to say, don't talk about my little brother like that.
Yeah.
And he loved it.
And you know,
and it really, it started with the way you raised them. I
Yeah.
say you, because you did a lot of the brainwashing in the beginning, but we just continue to nurture that. Like, you got to roll in this family. You got to live that out. And that's, you're going to love your sister. You're going to love your brother.
Right.
You're going to get each other's backs, because that's who God's only given them one older brother. And
Yeah.
that's you. So you got to live, you got to own
so we
that.
could call it brainwashing, or we could call it vision casting, because when you were saying that story, I have seen a direct correlation from that moment into like Logan and Kendall's relationship, where she sees him different now. Before, she might have been like, get away, get out of my room. And like, she lets him now. He's the big brother that's the protector. She lets, like, she'll jump on him and she'll cuddle with him. Like,
Yeah.
it totally changed everything. And we could have taken that moment and corrected him harshly.
Yeah.
And it would have made him remorseful, but probably continued
Yeah.
that behavior. And so I think even maybe we could, instead of brainwashing, because that doesn't sound nice, we could call it like vision casting is what we've tried to do from
takes a lot of
the
work.
womb. It's so much work.
Today
It's
I was
so much
pulling out of the
intention.
driveway, and there was a huge Christmas tree with a metal base
Uh-huh.
in the middle of the road.
Thank you, Santa Ana Winds.
Yeah. And my son sees it, and I want to drive past it,
Mhm.
but I realize this is that vision moment. You know what I mean? And so I put the car in park, and I get out, and I start to move it, and he starts to get out of the car too, because I have taught him.
Yeah.
And I get back in the car, and I tell him, we've said this before, I say, boys make excuses, men take responsibility. He's
Yeah.
like, right. And it's like, I need that moment for him. And I say, what if mom was driving down the street and nobody moved out of the way? And that could be really damaging. You know what I mean? That could be bad. And he's like, yeah, you're right. The lazy dad just goes, get out of the car and move that out of the way. But then it's like, if you take a moment to parent
Right.
and you think about it as training them,
Yeah.
I need to train my son to take opportunities like that and take responsibility when he can, because
Yeah.
that's what a man does.
Right.
I need to train my son to be a big brother to his little sister, because she only has one big brother, you know? And the little sister too is getting trained as well with how to hopefully see where to go in the family if there's a crisis.
Right.
Because there's a reality there where she might not feel like she can tell me what's going on, but maybe she can tell her brother.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us to another version of
Yeah.
this talk. You know where I'm going with this?
Yes, I do.
Do you want to take it there?
Sure. We have tried to teach our kids to be a team. And then the parents are a team. So, and that actually leads into our next one, but let's camp out here for a second. So, I don't know if you would agree with this, but oftentimes when they're telling on each other, they get in trouble for telling on each other.
Yeah.
Unless it's something like dangerous.
Well, I do have a deal. We don't want
Yeah.
them tattletelling, except for this one situation. And that's if my daughter gets a boyfriend and I don't know about it,
Behind your back.
and their older brothers tell on her to me. In this particular case, this is rewarded. I have told them I will give them
A lot of money.
$1,000. I said, if your sister is dating behind my back and I find out from you, I'll give you $1,000. Now, she also knows that,
Yes.
because that would be a big deal if she was breaking that trust, because
Yes.
lying is the biggest deal in our family.
Yes.
So, because it breaks relationships. So I would just say this. In most cases, what you're saying, except for that one caveat.
One caveat. But I think we have tried to instill this principle about them being a team, because we realize at some point we're going to leave this earth and they're only going to have each other. And
Right.
we want that bond to be close and trusted. So I think we started doing things when they were really young, that would kind of, I don't want to say massage this, but
Nurture it.
nurture it. Thank
Yeah.
you. So, kids naturally put themselves up against each other
Right.
for everything. They're trying to figure out their life, what they're good at,
Yeah.
their place in the family. And so it is really easy for parents to just say like, hey, who's going to make it to the car first?
Yeah.
And your fastest kid is always going to win.
Right.
So the other two, They're always going to lose. And then
Right.
they're going to see themselves as less than because that's not the one thing they're good at. And so one thing we've tried to do is try to make them a team and they can be against us in competition.
And really also the origin for this is because mom and dad are a separate team than them.
Yeah.
And any psychologist will tell you the best way to love your kids is to love their mom.
Yeah.
You know, I got to take care of her. She's got to take care of me. We don't team up with the kids against each other ever. I mean, we're pretty clear with them about this. I take Maria on a date. Out of 52 Fridays a year, how many did I take you on a date?
At least 49. Like we were pretty good about it.
Yeah, I take you on a date every week. They know that. They know that that mom and dad do date night and that, you know, they can't come.
Yeah,
they cannot
they're
come.
not invited.
Yes, because mom and dad do that. And, you know, sometimes mom and dad, you know, when I get home from work, especially when they're little, I love when they would run and give me hugs and kisses.
Dad's
home. That's the best. There's nothing better than that. But at the same time, I have to also still show them in that moment that mom's first.
Yeah.
And so I go, wait. Mom's first. And I give mom a kiss and they go, ew. They love it. And then I hug them. And I know that sounds so crazy, but the truth is that they need to see that mom comes first.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that it doesn't bother them. They love it.
Yeah.
They love that mom is safe with me and they love that mom is first and it makes them feel secure. Knowing the order in the home makes it feel secure.
Yeah.
So they can be a team and we can be a team. Of course we're a team.
Yeah.
But I don't want them telling on each other. I want them getting each other's backs.
Yeah.
I don't want them trying to divide this team. That's not how it works.
Kids will naturally do that on their own because, you know.
Totally. And they'll be like, did
smart.
mom buy this or did you buy this? And I said, that doesn't exist. We are one. You know what I mean? Tell me what you got for your birthday. Because I don't know. You know what I mean? Let's see what you got for Christmas.
They'll be like, Dad, tell us what you got us for Christmas.
Yeah, they are onto it now. But the truth is that we're a team. We have different roles. There's different seasons. Sometimes I'm working 2 jobs and she's staying at home with the kid and only working 1 job or working part-time. And then sometimes we're both working full-time. And sometimes it's like there's all different types of seasons in our life. But at the end of the day, this is the most important thing.
Yeah.
This is the most important thing. And they're only going to be in our house for so long, and they need to see each other as special and a unit. We're all a unit, but anyways, I'm kind of beating the dead,
well, you kind of
horse.
already talked about our third point, which was that our world doesn't revolve around them.
Point number 3.
Point number 3.
Yeah.
So as you make them a team and a unit and you're seen as a team and a unit, this actually comes with more ease because they realize mom and dad are the people that keep this world spinning for us.
Watch this episode backwards because point number 3 is the most important one. Point number 3 is the world does not revolve around them.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And nothing will make your life more complicated than you revolving your life around your kids.
And nothing will make their adulthood harder.
Yeah.
Because if you have grown up thinking that the world revolves around you, they are in for a rude awakening.
Yeah.
And probably some suffering in this new reality that the world doesn't revolve around them.
You know what people thought we were going to say? They thought we were going to say, oh, take them to church, read them the Bible every night. You know what I mean? I don't read them the Bible every night, right?
Right.
We have 4-5 services a weekend and they go to one of them.
Yeah.
You know, we're not overboard on church. We're not like doing family devotions together. Yeah. We're not like, you know, kumbayaing in the living room and like singing worship songs.
Done that like once.
We're doing just what everybody else does, you know?
Yes.
And but the most important thing is that the world does not revolve around them. And the thing about that is
go off.
Is sports. You know what I mean? Dude, sports are a gift to children.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, it seems like extra especially, if that's a word, for kids, for boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love my boys in sports. They're learning healthy competition. They're learning how to win.
They're learning to work hard.
Lose. They're learning how to train for something. They're learning how to be coached by somebody.
Different
to
authorities.
Be better.
Yes.
A good coach will actually discipline your kids. They'll correct them. So they'll get outside authority in their life, which is good. Sports are super important. But too much sports will make your life so complicated.
Yeah.
Right? I have a lot of friends who their kids are in multiple baseball teams, multiple soccer leagues or whatever, and their life is a whirlwind. And their kids, The parents are at every practice and every game. Look, I don't want to miss my kid's soccer game if I don't have to, but I don't want to go to all the practices. I have 3 kids. I can't go to gymnastics, karate, football, soccer. I can't do all that.
Right.
And I don't want my kids to think that dad's life is going every night of the week to their things.
Well, and let's talk about the fallacy with that. Because so we have 3 kids. They're all in different things. And some seasons are different than others depending on the schedule and the sport. I don't know if I told you this story. I was at my oldest son's football something. And one of the parents that has one child said something kind of snarky to me, and they're like,
What?
"Oh, we haven't
Who's
seen your
this?
husband
Who said
all
this?
season," because it was the end of the season.
When was
party.
this? When was this?
You weren't there.
Who was
anyway?
this?
So
This is a soccer team, Dad?
no, this is a football team parents, and they both of them go to everything. Okay, no disrespect to you that have
Getting a little defensive.
we'll get a little
Who is
defensive here. Yeah, who is this?
Who's this chump?
Anyway, they mentioned something kind of snarky, and they're like, "Oh, we haven't seen your husband all season. Has he actually come to any of the games?" And
Do I know this person?
Probably not, because you
Okay.
weren't at a lot of the
All right.
games. But anyway,
Should I know this person?
I maybe got defensive in my heart, not out loud, and I was like, "Oh, well, my husband works on Thursday nights, and so he can't not go to work to come to a game." But the reason I tell you
babe.
this story is not because like, oh, I came to my husband's defense, because my son would not. I've asked him this, you would ask him, "Do you care if I'm there?" And he's like, "No, it's like, go work, Dad." You know what I mean? You are such a present father. You're such an incredible dad. You're so intentional that I think sometimes parents can go like, "Oh, what's everyone else doing?" Because I want to stand, like, I want to be in that.
Yeah.
I want the perception of I'm at everything.
Yeah.
When a good dad's not going to forsake work to go to a game, he's got to provide for his family.
Well,
And
the dad guilt's real. You know
so
what I
is
mean?
mom guilt.
I'm
all guilt.
People are saying that about me not going to the games. I don't want to look like a bad father. And
Right.
like, am I a bad father? The dad guilt's
No.
real. But
You're the best father I know. And just because you're not somewhere doesn't mean you're not doing other intentional things. So anyway, I think a trap as a parent is to go like, "Oh, what's everyone else doing?" That doesn't mean they're all good parents. Like, cool, they could come to a game and never talk to their kid.
yeah,
And you were so intentional. You're so good with the boys and Kendall. But like, that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So anyway, don't fall into the trap of like, "Ooh, I want to be perceived as a present," or "I want to be perceived as this." Just be intentional with your kids, and they're going to feel that and know that and have so much security.
I don't know the guy who said that or lady who said that or whatever, but there is a reality where when our life is revolving around our kids at the point of a sacrifice, where really the more you sacrifice, the more something's getting your worship.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start kind of worshiping your kids and, denying all these things to put, to exalt them, what you can wind up happening is you can start looking at other people and being like, you can wind up being critical of other people is what you're describing.
Yeah.
Because this is your religion.
Right.
So your religion is sports for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Your religion, your sacrifice is your own personal time to be at their
Right.
soccer practices
Mm-hmm.
and their games. Your energy, your affection, all those things that go into what is designed to worship God could easily go into your kids. All your money is going to them, all your sacrifice is going to them, all your time is going to them, and your identity can become, am I a good dad or
I'm a good soccer mom.
or a good mom? Yeah. And so it's a real trap. It's one of those times where something that's good becomes God.
Mm-hmm.
So don't let your kids become idols, don't let the world revolve around them. It will set them up for a bad future.
Yeah.
So let's recap. Number 1, family code, or maybe a little extra intentionality with God's the Father. His code is what he teaches us
Through the scriptures.
Yeah. Number 2, brainwash your kids.
We said we
Help them
changed
know
it.
their role.
We said intentional vision casting.
Oh, okay. And then 3 would be,
Don't let your world revolve around your kids. They're great. They're a gift. Steward them well, love them well, parent them well, but keep the main thing. Keep Jesus first. Then it's your marriage. Then it's your kids.
Yeah. Hope that helps. Do you want to say a prayer for any family out there? I think people might feel attacked.
No,
so
I
just
hope
pray
not.
For them.
Okay,
Yeah.
Lord, I pray that this podcast
We're not nailing it, dude. We're not nailing it. Okay.
comes with grace and understanding, Lord.
Yeah.
But I pray for every parent that feels like they're not doing a good job.
Yeah.
I've been there. Feel like I'm there every other day. Lord, would you help us parent our kids well unto the glory of God? Lord, I pray that our kids would love Jesus, that they would seek truth, that they would seek you every day of their life, and the things that we instill in them, even when we mess up, God, that you would cover those gaps and that they would live a life that honors you. In Jesus' name, amen.